Good evening, everyone. Today we will start with a nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy. Okay, nuclear. It comes from the word nucleus. Okay, magnetic means we all know magnetic field, and resonance is we have discussed about this the term resonance. It means a frequency at which the matter or the molecules or the nuclear fragments like protons, electrons or neutrons, they absorb something. Okay, so at a particular frequency they absorb the radiations. These subatomic particles, they absorb the radiations to the greatest extent, to a greatest extent. Okay, so that is regarded as the resonance. And spectroscopy, we have already discussed the interaction of the matter and the electromagnetic waves. Okay, so in this chapter, what we can expect is, if you combine all this nuclear magnetic resonance, that means we are or we will be discussing something about the subatomic particles within the nucleus, and we have over here protons and neutrons. Okay, protons and neutrons. Protons are positively charged and neutrons are neutral, right? So we'll be looking into the what you call interaction of specifically the protons within a magnetic field. Okay, so and how this is being affected by a particular frequency of electromagnetic radiations. In NMR, we basically, the electromagnetic radiation are radio frequencies. Okay, they are radio frequencies. Are you getting my point? So we'll be discussing about, in this NMR spectroscopy, this nuclear magnetic resonance. In short, it is regarded as NMR spectroscopy. Okay, and herein we will be discussing about the activity of the protons under a magnetic field when we excite them with some radio frequencies. Okay, and we will be looking into how to analyze the signals from this NMR spectroscopic techniques. Okay, so the nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy, it is most commonly known as NMR spectroscopy or magnetic resonance spectroscopy. Okay, and in short, it is regarded as MRS. Okay, so MRS spectroscopy is a spectroscopic technique to observe local magnetic fields around the atomic nuclei. Okay, and since we are looking into this atomic nuclei, hence the name this nuclear, it comes into picture. Okay, nuclei. So the sample is placed in a magnetic field. This is an important thing. So in magnetic field, it is having a strength of B0, and the NMR signal is produced by excitation of the nuclei sample with radio waves. Okay, into nuclear magnetic resonance, which is detected by sensitive radio receivers. Okay, the intramolecular magnetic field around an atom in a molecule changes the resonance frequency. Okay, so intramolecular magnetic field around an atom in a molecule changes the resonance frequency, thus giving access to the details of the electronic structure of a molecule and its individual functional groups. Okay, so this line will be clear slowly as we go in depth in our next slides. So what is the principle of NMR? The principle of NMR, it usually involves three sequential steps. First one is alignment or the polarization of the magnetic nuclear spins in an applied constant magnetic field B0. The perturbation of this alignment of the nuclear spins by a weak oscillating magnetic field, usually referred to as radio frequency pulse. Okay, so if you see over here, we are using radio frequency waves which are in the pulse form. That means they will generate a radio frequency or the electromagnetic radiations in small burst and then stop, and again after some time it will generate another burst and then it will stop. So during this stop time we do the analysis. This is an important thing. Okay, then lastly, the detection and analysis of the electromagnetic waves emitted by the nuclei of the sample is done as a result of this perturbation. Okay, so what happens, we will again further come down. So the most common types of NMR are proton NMR. It is basically the hydrogen NMR, okay, or carbon 13 NMR, okay, spectroscopy, but it is applicable to any kind of sample that contains nuclei possessing spin. Okay, so in this, usually you will find that in nature we are having C12, but in C12 we will be having protons which are pairing up. Okay, now when they pair up, what happens? They cancel each other nuclear spin. So we will not be having any nuclei that possess spin. Okay, so in hydrogen atom we have one proton, so that is not paired up, so we will be having one proton which will be spinning. And okay, similarly in carbon 13, what happens? There will be 12 protons, the 12 protons plus 12 number of paired protons, so that means you will be having 6 pair of protons plus one single proton, and hence carbon 13, it gives you the NMR spectroscopy. Okay, so any nuclei which has this any nuclei which has which contains a spin quantum, okay, a single proton which will give rise to the what you call when the nucleus is moving, it will give rise to the generation of a local magnetic field. Those kind of protons, they can be used for the analysis. And over here, if you see, usually as I have told you, the proton NMR and the C13 NMR, both of this type of NMR, they are usually used in NMR spectroscopy. These are commonly used. Okay. Now, yeah. So what happens? We have, if we consider an atom, within the atom, say we have a proton, we have a neutron, this is in the case of hydrogen atoms, okay, and this is the nucleus, this black boundary, it is the nucleus, okay. Then outside we have electronic orbitals, okay. So this is a general structure of an atom, okay. Now if you look over here, in the classical theory we have electrons, okay, and we have protons and we have neutrons. Electron, it is a charged molecule. If it moves, it will generate electrical field, magnetic field, okay. Proton, if it rotates, it will generate electrical field, it will generate magnetic field. Neutrons, they are they do not have any charges, okay, so they do not generate any field. But in quantum mechanics or quantum physics, you have the protons and the neutrons. They are again further subdivided into quarks. So I'm not going into the details of that thing. So here what we have is that in an atom we will consider that there are two charge systems. One is the electron system, one is the proton system. Now this electron and the proton system, both of them, they are charged molecules or the charged particles, and they are rotating, both of them. The electrons, they are rotating, um, suppose this is there, so it is rotating on its axis and also around this orbit. Okay. In protons basically they are moving within their axis. They do not have orbital movement. Okay. So they move in a within its axis. So when this proton is moving, so what we say is that a spinning charge, it generates a magnetic field. Okay. Now if you see, this is the Fleming's right hand rule. In this, what we have a current conductor which is passing the current, and these fingers, right hand fingers, it shows the direction of the magnetic field. Okay. Now this is the current is moving in this one, and you are saying that current is going up, and you are telling that magnetic field is being generated over here. Now what we say, the movement of the current and the movement of the holes, which are basically uh, positively charged what you call particles, they are also moving in the direction of the current. So we say that when the positively charged particles are moving in a conductor, that means by using the Fleming's right hand rule, we say that the this magnetic field is being created along the direction of the fingers. Okay. Herein, if you see, suppose this is a proton. Okay, this red ball, it is a proton. Now the proton is moving in the direction of this one, in this direction. Okay. Now when it is moving in this direction, we will apply this Fleming's right hand rule, and if you see, it is moving and it is coming like this and in this way. So it is in the direction of the magnetic field. So the proton is moving in the direction of this magnetic field, and the moving charge will create a magnetic field. How the magnetic field will be created? The upper one will be the north pole, and the south and the lower one will be the south pole in the direction of the current where we are moving in the Fleming's rule. So if we look into the thumb area, so at this thumb area, in this direction, we will be having the north of the proton. Okay. And on the opposite direction, we will be having the south of the magnet. Okay. Am I clear? Am I clear, or anyone has any doubt?
Yes, sir, you're clear. You're clear.
It's clear, right? So
Yes, sir.
I'm not going into further details then. So if we put this Fleming's right hand rule over here in the direction where this charge is moving, the thumb will show you the direction of the north pole, and the other pole will be the south pole. Okay. In the next chapter, we will be discussing about the electron proton EPR, electron paramagnetic resonance spectroscopy. In that, we will be looking into that electron is moving. Okay. And if it moves in the same direction, so what will happen? If current is moving upwards towards the thumb, electron moves downside. Okay. Electron moves downside. Now if I apply this Fleming's right hand rule over here, what will happen? The poles which will be generated, it will be just the opposite. Okay, so if this electron is moving in this direction, that means on the top we will be having south pole, and at the bottom we will be having north north pole of the magnet. Okay, so these charged proton or the electrons, when they move, they will behave as tiny magnets. Okay, they will behave as tiny magnets. Okay. Now, a spinning charge, it generates magnetic field, and we have seen that there will be an north pole and a south pole. Okay, so the resulting spin magnet, it has got a magnetic moment mu, and that is proportional to the spin. Okay, in the presence of an external magnetic field B0, which is typically in the range of 1 to 20 Tesla, two spin states exist, plus half and minus half. The magnetic moment of the lower energy state, plus half, is aligned to the external magnetic field, but that of the higher energy state, minus half spin state, is opposed to the external field. Okay, now how this is coming, I would say, suppose you are having a magnet. This is north pole, this is south pole of this one. Okay, it is and you have not brought anything nearby. Yeah, before going into this one, I would again I would just tell you another important thing. We all know, just I am recapping that, north pole and south pole. So what happens over here? We all know that the magnetic field, it starts from north pole and it enters into south pole, right? Am I right? Yes or no? Tell something.
Yes, sir.
So why you people are so quiet? I don't know. Anyway, so suppose it is lying over there, it is freely available. So what I do next, I bring a bigger magnet. Okay, so the magnetic field will be from north to south. Okay, so where is your north? North is down, south is up. Okay, now in what configuration it will align? This red magnet, tiny magnet, which was present over there, what it will do?
It will try to align itself with the bigger field.
It will realign north, south. Okay, so this is our north of the magnetic field, this is our south. Okay, so towards the south this will align, right? So this is the low energy state, right? This is the low energy state.
Yes, sir.
Right? So it is automatically being done. Now, if you want to put it, please understand this concept. If you have any problem, just let me know, because this will be important for you guys while understanding both NMR and EPR. Now, if you have to put it in the other way around, in this fashion, then what will happen? It will not stay, it will again flip back. So for keeping this second magnet, this one in this second configuration, in this state, you have to apply an external energy to this system so that you can keep it in this alignment, in this form. Okay, so what it is doing in the minus half state, in the low energy state, it is also called the alpha state, and it is said that it is having plus half this uh, plus half lower no, plus half magnetic moment. Okay, and this the other one high energy state, it is called minus half this magnetic moment or the spin energy state. So and it is also called the beta state. Okay, the lower energy state, it is called the alpha state. The high energy state, it is called the beta state. Okay, so it will align in this fashion. Okay, so next is, suppose this first magnet which is here, I apply an extra energy. What it will do? It will come to this configuration, and then when I release that energy, it will again flip back to the first state, and during this state, what it will do? I have to remove the energy. Okay, here what we have discussed? We have discussed that we are using radio frequencies. Okay, now these radio frequencies, this is providing these protons sufficient energy to flip back no, to flip to the high energy state. And when during this off period, the analysis period, when we are putting this radio frequency off, when we are making it off, that means there is no radio frequency, what it will do? It will release that energy and again come back to its original low energy state. Okay, so this is the basic mechanics of your NMR spectroscopy. Okay, now there is another fundamental thing which you need to understand over here. Till now, I was talking just about a single proton, but when we are talking about an atom, we are not just talking about a single proton. Over there, we also have the electrons. So this proton is surrounded by various electrons, right? And in this first line, we have discussed that spinning charge, it will generate a magnetic field. Now there will be a localized magnetic field also. Okay, there will be a localized magnetic field also due to the presence of the electrons all across it, and that magnetic field, it will try to oppose this B0 and it will try to cancel out. So what you will be having? You will be having this magnet, instead of going to the low energy state, alpha state, it will be somewhat in an intermediate state. Over here. Okay, because the net magnetic field, what this blue magnet is now what do you call experiencing, it's not the total B0. Okay, it is a reduced B0 minus the magnetic field, local magnetic field created by the by the movement of the electrons around this atom, around this nuclei. Right now, it is neither in the alpha state, neither in the beta state. So it is in between. So if you have to now flip it, so suppose your direction is here, N S, and then you have the another one, say magnet N S, and we have this big magnet N S. Okay, now if I have to move this blue one over here, and I have to move this brown one over here, which one will take higher energy? The blue one I will be requiring higher energy. Okay, and this brown one, this brown magnet, it will take lesser energy. So at a lower energy, this will be flipped, and at higher energy, this SN, this blue colored, this one, it will be flipped. Higher energy, it will be flipped, and this brown one, it will be flipped at a lower energy. Am I clear? So in this blue configuration, when you are trying to flip it, blue configuration is when we have applied this magnetic field. Okay, red one, we talked that it was lying in a free space. Okay, and blue one after the application of the north and the this external magnetic field B0. Okay, so this blue one, it will be requiring a higher energy to align itself in the alpha in the this beta energy state. Okay, when you give an external RF frequency. So this property where you have the electrons which is shielding the proton magnetic field from the external magnetic field, it is called the shielding effect. Okay, it is called the shielding effect because it is protecting the nuclei from the external magnetic field, and if you have to take those shielded protons to the high energy state, you will be requiring lower amount of energy as compared to the hydrogen atoms which is not shielded. Am I clear? Anyone who is having any doubt?
No, sir. No, sir.
Apart from you, anyone else who is having doubt? Because if you do not have this concept, it will be difficult to grasp the next phenomena. So if you have any doubt, please get it cleared.
No, sir.
Okay. Okay, since you are not telling anything, so I assume every one of you have understood. So I am moving forward. Okay. Now, the difference in energy between the two spin states is dependent on the external magnetic field strength, and is always very small. Okay. The two spin states have the same energy when the external field is 0. Okay, we all know, because when we put the atom in normal arrangement, what they will do? They will try to pair up these magnetic moments and they will those magnetic moments will be cancelled out. Okay, so in this way it remains over there. Now when we apply an external magnetic field B0, now if you see over here, so what is happening? We are getting some low energy state nuclei, we are getting some high energy state nuclei. Minus half, if you see, it is an high energy state. Okay, minus half is high energy state, plus half is low energy state. So plus half means what you are doing? Anti-clockwise, right? Anti-clockwise movement. Okay, and minus is clockwise. Clockwise movement of the this protons, right? Now we have two states, low energy state and the high energy state. Okay, now the difference between, if you look over here, so what does this say basically? Suppose we are having, say, 10 hydrogen atoms. Okay, now some of them it will go to the high energy state, some of them it will go to the low energy state. Okay, so in a population you will find that there will be some rebels who will be against the system and some will be with the system, and you will find majority of the people they are with the system. No one wants to be in a higher energy state. So in our class also I am teaching. Okay, some of you may like, some of you may not like my way of teaching, right? So if you go in any office also, you will find some of you are in alignment with the administration and some of you are against the alignment of the administration. Okay, you do not like the policies of the administration. However, a system usually runs because a slightly higher fraction of the what you call of the population, they are favoring the system. Similarly over here also, what happens is that when we talk about the lower energy system, and I have told I'm sorry, so when we are applying a magnetic field, a slightly higher number, I am saying slightly higher number of the atoms will be in the larger state, and there will be lower number of, slightly lower. Suppose if you are talking about 10 atoms, so say usually you will be having 5 and 5 distribution you would expect, but you may get 6 in the favor of the magnetic field and 4 against the magnetic field. You're getting my point? So what would happen over here is that this extra 2 atoms, if you see, you are having a magnetic field north to south and north to south. So they will be trying to cancel each other because they are within a very constant domain. However, since we are having these 2 extra systems or 2 extra protons which are favoring the system, we will be having a slight magnetic movement in the direction of the magnetic field. Okay, so usually what we draw is that we have a magnetic field B0, and due to this 2 extra proton we have another small magnetic moment, total magnetic moment in the direction of the magnetic field. Okay, now what happens is that the energy between these two states, it changes when we change the magnetic field. And this change in this energy levels of plus half or the alpha state or the beta state and the beta state is given by delta T at any magnetic field of Bx. This is the external magnetic field. Okay, so this would be equal to mu, which is the gyromagnetic ratio, multiplied by Bx divided by I, which is the spin quantum number. Okay. So this will be given by this thing. So if you see the energy content between the alpha and the beta state, it will be higher, or it is dependent on the applied magnetic field, or you can say the magnetic field what the proton will be sensing. Okay. So if we change the magnetic field, we can change this delta energy level between the alpha state and the beta state. Okay. Now, here I have given some example that 6 and 4, it is not that simple. When we talk about thousands of atoms, then only we get very small amount of energy, maybe say thousands or lakhs of atoms, we have only 1 to 2 atoms in favor of the protons, in fact not atoms, protons in the favor of the magnetic field. Okay, and due to this reason, what happens is that the energy difference between the two spin states is less than 0.1 calorie per mole, even at when we apply a magnetic field of 1 to 20 Tesla. Okay, when we apply a magnetic field of 1 to 20 Tesla, the nucleus of a hydrogen atom, the proton, has a magnetic moment of 2.7927. Okay. Now, if you see, B naught is given, and then what is the energy difference over here? It has been told 2.34. When the magnetic field is 2.34 Tesla, you have 100 joules. Then at 4.73, you have 200 joules. And if you see at around 11 Tesla, we are having only 500 joules. The energy difference, the protons mean energy difference. Okay. Again, we have seen that frequency, it is basically dependent on the energy. Mu is equal to magnetic moment multiplied by B0 by H multiplied by I. So accordingly, we get from 0 to higher this thing. So this where this 0 is started. Usually in most of the NMR spectroscopy, you will find that 0 starts on the right. But in this case, in this source, it is given in this way, or whatever, it doesn't matter. So this is the upfilled. These are the upfilled, what you call upfilled peaks, and these are downfilled peaks. Okay, these are upfilled peaks. If you get something at lower magnetic fields, that will be upfilled this thing, and on the right hand side over here, you will be having downfield. So towards the 0, you will be having the upfield. Okay. Now the same thing is given over here. If you apply an external magnetic field, there will be an energy gap which corresponds to the radio frequency which you will be exciting the atom with. A nucleus with spin at higher energy generates a magnetic field in the opposite direction to the external magnetic field. I have already told you. Okay, and then a nucleus with spin at lower energy generates a magnetic field in the direction of the external magnetic field. The figure relates a spin half nuclei that that include the most commonly used NMR nucleus, that is the proton, as well as many other nucleus such as C13, N15, P31. Many nuclei such as deuterium, 2H and hydrogen have a higher spin and are therefore quadrupolar, and although they may yield NMR spectra, their energy diagram and some of their properties are different. Okay. Usually we do not use this H2 um, H2 atom, this thing, and they are basically deuterium hydrogens. Okay, so they are NMR inactive. Okay, and since they are NMR inactive, and if you have to dissolve some say, if you have to dissolve some compound in water to and then do the NMR spectroscopy, then you have to use D2O, which is deuterated water. That means H2 2O water. Okay, because these hydrogen atoms will then not give any spectra. If we use H2O, then what will happen? This will be having one single proton which will be rotating, and it will be generating this thing, and it will also generate a magnetic field, and it will be having either plus of minus of or plus of spin states, and it will be giving you some energy as it will be interfering with your sample hydrogen atoms. Okay. Why should the proton nuclei in different compounds behave differently in NMR nuclei experiment? If you see, I told you that electrons are charged particles. You are having some electrons around, and then you have the proton. So that funda is told over here. Since electrons are charged particles, they move in response to the external magnetic field so as to generate a secondary field that opposes the stronger applied field. This secondary field shields the nucleus from the applied field. So B0 must be increased in order to achieve resonance, absorption of the RF energy. Okay, are you getting my point? What I told previously? You will be having this magnet over here, north pole, south pole. Okay, if electrons cloud are present over here, it will interfere with the magnetic field. It will create a local environment, a local magnetic field, and which will try to protect this proton magnetic field. The magnetic moment, it will create an environment of induced field, okay, from the electron motion, which will try to prevent this proton, and it will prevent it to go to the uh, mm, either the alpha or the beta states. Okay, so due to this reason we get this what you call, we get different compounds. They behave differently because the electron cloud, the nature of the electrons which will be present across the across a specific hydrogen atom, it will be different. Okay, now if you see over here, as I was telling you, we are having this 0 on the right hand side. So this is having high field region, so that's why it is called uh, what you call an upfield region, and at the lower region we have the downfield region or low field region. Okay, now over here what you have, if you see, uh, ppm delta. Delta means change. Okay, so this delta scale is relative to TMS, which is having a delta of 0. Okay, so if you see all the hydrogen atom like the this uh, alcoholic group, this carboxylic group, this amide group, okay, the phenolic group, and all of this, if you see, they are having different regions. Okay, they are having different regions. They are having different characteristic regions. We have talked about this in the FTIR also similarly. So in FTIR, what we saw is that there will be some functional groups, and those functional groups will be absorbing at particular frequencies. Herein, we will be having these proton systems which will be absorbing the radio frequencies at different magnetic field. Okay, and from there we will be having some information. Okay, so if you see over here, TMS is basically trimethyl silane, and it is having a field of CH3, 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 and usually when the analysis is done, suppose you want to measure any system, then TMS is included into the system, and it acts as an internal standard. And if you look over here, in all these cases, the hydrogen is having similar environment, okay, similar chemical environment. So they will give a single peak over here, okay, it will be giving a single peak, and we take this peak as the reference peak, and then at what frequency they are absorbing, that is being measured. Okay. Now let us take an example of the ethanol. In ethanol, see, CH2OH, CH3. Okay, and this 0, at 0 we are having the TMS peak. So from there we are calculating. As we are moving towards the right, towards the left, sorry. So what is happening? We are getting these hydrogen atoms. Now what is happening to these hydrogen atoms? It is associated with carbon, and these hydrogen atoms, they are associated with the electrons from the carbon. Okay, now since they are having the electrons over here, what will happen? It will try to get, it will be having a electron shielding effect. It will be having the electron shielding effect. Okay, now due to this reason, electron shielding effect, the resonance over here will be happening at a higher field strength. Okay, that means in the upfield region. Okay, so if you see, for these regions, these three hydrogen atoms, over here we have got 3 peaks. Now why these 3 peaks? All these three, they are having same what do you call, they are having same local environment. It is not related with these three peak what are being generated. What happens over here? We have to look into the surrounding hydrogen atoms. In the surrounding hydrogen atoms, we are having this CH2 and CH2. Okay, so this surrounding hydrogen atoms, there are 2. So for these 3 hydrogen atoms, we will be getting 2 plus 1 peaks. So if you see over here, for these 3 hydrogen atoms, we are getting 3 peaks, and these 3 peaks, they are basically due to the presence of 2 hydrogen atoms in the neighborhood. That's why 2 neighborhood hydrogen atoms plus 1 hydrogen atom. That's why we are getting 3 peaks. Okay. Similarly, if you see these 2 hydrogen atoms over here, so what is happening over here? If you see, oxygen is there. Oxygen is highly electronegative. Hydrogen is, this oxygen is highly electronegative. So it is carrying out, or it is taking the electrons from this carbon atom. So the electroshielding, the shielding effect is lower over here, and due to this you are getting the peaks for these green hydrogen atoms at a lower field, and there are 4 peaks which is called peak splitting, what we call as peak splitting. Now this peak splitting, how many we are having? We are having 4 peak splitting. So apply the rule. How many you should get? You should get 3 plus 1. So how many hydrogen atom are there for this hydrogen atom which is experiencing similar kind of field? How many neighboring hydrogen atoms will be there? There are 3 hydrogen atoms, and if you look over here, there are 3 hydrogen atoms. Okay. Now if you look into this red hydrogen atom which is attached with the oxygen, what is happening? Herein, what it does is that it is undergoing intermolecular hydrogen bonding with the other molecules. So there is an intermolecular exchange of the acidic hydroxyl proton, often results in a loss of the coupling information, and hence there is no coupling. Okay, am I clear?
Yes, sir.
So suppose if there are there is
Hello.
and ether, and say this thing CH3 CH2O CH2 CH3, right? Now if you see, they are having we are having 2 CH3 groups. Okay, we are having 2 H2 groups. Now in this case what will happen? Definitely we will not get this hydrogen atom, but it is not in the picture. Okay, then this peak, these hydrogen peaks which we are getting sharp, they appear as slightly broadened, and it is called peak integration. Okay, and in how many ratio it will break down, it is being given by this what do you call Pascal's uh, uh, Pascal splitting. Okay, so from here Pascal's triangle, sorry, Pascal's triangle. So if you have a singlet, you will be having a peak. So this will give the intensity ratio between these two. Okay, if you have a doublet, you will be having 2 peaks of same height. That means doublet means you will be having one external atom which is affecting the other one. So 1 plus 1, you will be having doublet. So if you are having doublet, both the peaks will be having similar intensities, near equal intensity. If it is a triplet, in this case 1 is to 2 is to 1. So these two, they are nearly similar. There will be some minor variations definitely, but they will be nearly equal, and the internal one, this peak, the middle one, not the internal one, the middle one, it will be having peak which is double that of the other 2 peaks. Okay. Similarly, if it is a quartlet, it will be having 1 is to 3 is to 3 is to 1. Okay. in this fashion it goes on. Now this is the instrumentation of this thing. You have a magnetic pole. So then in between it creates this magnetic pole, they create external B0 field. Okay. Then you have the sweeping coils where the magnetic field is being made incremental. So continuously the magnetic field is being increased. Okay. And this is being, and this increase in the, so basically we will be having uh, bx, which will be equals to b0 plus bx, sorry, b0 plus delta b, let me say delta b. Okay, so that will be controlled by this sweep generators. How this delta b will be increased, it will be taken care of by this sweep generator. Slowly it will try to increase the magnetic field, and in between you will be having a sample. Okay, and then you are having the radio frequency transmitter. It will transmit the signals to the samples, and if you see this sample tube, it is being continuously rotated. This allows you, so you have a spinning tube, sample tube, which will rotate over here, and then radio frequency transmitter, you transmit it, and then you have a stop, and again you again start it. So during that stop time, this radio frequency receiver and an amplifier, it gets the signal and it goes to the control, and then you plot the data. Okay, so with this we complete this chapter.